Alright, welcome. So if you're here to learn how to make custom tasks inside Azure DevOps, or also known as extensions inside Azure DevOps. So as always with all of our videos, if you look inside the video description, you'll find important links as well as GitHub links to the project file, and most importantly, important timestamps that will allow you to skip ahead to the topic that you care about most, or if this is your second or third time watching this, to be able to go back and forth to topics that you will just want to quickly refresh your memory on. Okay, so that being said, we can start at the video overview. So we're going to cover the prerequisites and dependencies to get started, the folder directory structure required, the creation of the task, the packaging of the task, publishing of the task, and most importantly, making revisions to the task. So I will quickly go over the prerequisites and dependencies that you need to have. First and foremost, you need to have an Azure Devops Project and organization. You also need to have Node.js installed version 10 or higher. You also need Typescript compiler version 2.2 or higher. And finally, you need cross-platform CLI for Azure DevOps, aka TFXCLI, installed. Alright, so next I'm going to give you a glimpse into the future of what our task directory is going to look like. So first image over here is the general root or home path that we're going to reference throughout the video. This is what it should look like. It should have a build and release task folder, images folder, readme, and a vss-extension.json. So keep in mind, again, this is at the end of the video. Your directory should look something like this. And throughout the video, I will also show you the directory being built and the final stage of what the directory should look like, so you can always cross-reference in case you missed something. This image on the right here is what's the contents of the build and release task. So this is just a snapshot example of what you might expect to see. And here it is again, verbally written out, that you expect to see a readme, images with the extension icon, PNG, build and release, and all the files that define the task, aka this image here over on the right. And finally, the vss-extension.json, which will essentially dictate the details of your task to Azure DevOps. And the final slide we're going to cover before we start the actual process is quickly go over the 4 steps that we're going to cover for task creation. So first is task scaffolding, which is essentially getting the prerequisites and set up for the task creation environment, if you will. The second is creating the task. The third is the packaging of the task. And finally, the fourth is publishing the task to Azure DevOps. So to be honest, there's actually one more thing that should basically be added here, and that is sharing tasks with organizations. So for this purpose of this video, we're only going to deal with sharing the task at a private level. Just to give you some preface or context rather, there's 2 ways that you can share it. First is a public way, in that you go to the marketplace and anyone on the internet can see your extension and download it and start using it. And the second way is a private way, in which only you and the organizations that you share it with have access to install it and consume and utilize your task. So before we begin, I want to give the preface that your home directory, regardless of what you call the folder or directory, should have the end result of a folder structure like this. So you should have at your home directory, at the root level of your home directory, a readme file, an images folder, a image that it's going to point to, the build and release task folder, and then later at the end we will create the vss-extension.json. So keep this in mind and make sure that you follow along to have the folder structures in place before you begin. Okay, to get started, we can open up command prompt as an administrator. Next, we will create what they call a quote-unquote home directory. A home directory is essentially a folder that will contain everything that defines our custom task. Later in the video, we will have to package this home directory and generate a .vsix file, which will be used to upload to Visual Studio Marketplace for the purpose of being used in Azure DevOps. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. So we'll do make dir. We will call it, in this case, I'm going to call my quote-unquote home directory part 1, because I do intend to make a multi-part series based on this topic, and this is the first part. So after we've created the directory, let's go inside and confirm that it's created and it's empty. Next, we can begin what is called the task scaffolding, which is basically getting all the dependencies and groundwork required to build custom tasks. So I decided to zoom in a bit on the command prompt to make it easier on your eyes and expand the directory on the right as well to see more details for each file, just in case it helps in following along. Alright, so let's go inside the command prompt window. Let's type in dir. We see part 1, which is our home directory. Let's go into our home directory, and then let's create a new directory, make dir, and we will call it build and release task. Alright, so now let's go inside this directory window, inside the build and release task, and then follow suit inside the command prompt as well. Now that we're here, we can start installing the dependencies that we'll need for our custom task. So we can start by typing in, let's clear this window. We can start by typing in npm not install init. And what this will do is create the package.json for us. It's going to walk us through this little prompt here first. We will say the package name is going to be build and release task. For this time, we'll say that's fine. The version we'll leave as a default. Description, this is a sample custom task. Entry point we'll leave as index.js. Test command, get repository, we can leave both of those as the defaults, as well as keywords. Author, let's make sure we get credit. License we can leave as a default. They're going to give us a little bit of a prompt to make sure that what we've entered is correct. And if it is, press enter. And we see that our package.json is created here. So if we were to inspect this, we do see that it matches one for one with everything that we've entered inside the command prompt window. Alright, so next in line, Microsoft has a library that's used when creating custom tasks. So let's add that inside our package.json. We can do that, let's clear this out. We can do that by typing in npm install Azure-pipelines -task -lab save. So FYI, you can always double check that it's updating, and you can see that it is indeed updating the dependencies with what we install here. Next, we need to ensure that Typescript typings are installed for external dependencies. We can do that by running the following two commands. First is npm install @types /node save -dev. And the second one is npm install @types /q --save -dev. Alright, so now we want to create a .gitignore file that will ignore the node modules directory, or this one. The main reason for this is because when building a project, all dependencies should be restored at compile time. While it's technically possible to check in your dependencies, it increases build time because it increases the data size of the repository, which results in a longer time to check out the repo. Also, it's just not recommended as you would constantly need to check in new packages and the proper versions as opposed to restoring from a package.json that will always ensure that you have the packages you need with the correct version you dictated. Okay, so to create this gitignore file, all we have to do is type in echo node modules underscore dot gitignore. So if we run that, we see that this .gitignore file is created, and if we were to inspect it, that's fine. We do see that it's going to ignore the node modules directory or path. Next, we have the option to specify the TypeScript version. The default version as of May 2021 is 2.3.4 if you do not explicitly state which version to use. Okay, so to do that, all we have to do is npm install TypeScript and @ the version that you want to install. In this case, we'll use 4.0.2 -- save dev. Alright, next we have the Typescript config file creation, or the tsconfig.json. This file ensures that your TypeScript files are compiled to JavaScript files. Okay, so all we have to do is type in tsc init, init, and we see our tsconfig.json file created. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the task scaffolding. So the next step is to actually create the task.json. So if you're up to this point, make sure that your directory looks the same as this. Okay, so you can create the task.json file whichever way you like, but I'm going to do it by typing in type nul greater than task.json. If you look over here, it creates an empty task.json file. So Microsoft does give us an example template for the task.json. You can look inside the video description and go to the GitHub link directly and download it, or copy and paste from there. Or I'm going to copy and paste it here and zoom in. You can pause the video and copy it word for word here. So basically all we have to do is replace these placeholder variables that they gave us with our variables. But before we do that, we should probably get an understanding of what these placeholders are supposed to be. So you can pause here, or again look at the video description for the direct link to the same chart, and take an understanding of what these properties are referencing or in reference to. So the most important field or placeholder variable to swap out is actually on line 3, this ID. This task GUID ID has to be a unique value, and Microsoft actually gave a tool of their own where you can auto create a unique ID. So you can either pause the video and copy GUIDgen.com, or you can look at the video description for a direct link to this website. So once you have it, just copy this and paste it directly into this placeholder spot right here. Alright, so let's start populating this info. For the name, the task name, let's just go to the package.json and give the same exact name over here for the task name. And for the friendly name, we'll just do the same, but we'll give some space in between just because we have the flexibility to do so. Task description, you can type in whatever you want. This is for YouTube video. And task author, let's give yourself credit. And then everything else we can leave as is. Alright, so next we're going to create the index.ts file. You can create it however which way you like. In this case, I'm going to create it the same way I did the task.json. Type nul greater than index.ts. And there it is. Alright, so for this part, once again, you can look inside the video description and, download and copy and paste from there, or you can pause the screen and, type it out from here. So we can leave everything here as is. Let's just make sure to save it and go back over here. And now let us make sure that we're inside the build and release task, or inside this directory, and let's actually compile the TypeScript files into JavaScript files. So to do that, we're just going to type tsc inside command prompt, hit enter, and sure enough you see that we have a JavaScript file generated based off our TypeScript file. So now we have enough of the task completed for us to actually be able to test running it. In order to do that, we're going to open a PowerShell window. So let's go over here, let's type in PowerShell. We'll open it as admin just in case. I don't think it's necessary, but we'll do it anyways. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go to this directory, we're going to copy it, we're going to go back to PowerShell, cd, paste that directory to make sure that we're inside the same directory inside PowerShell. And then from here, you can type node space index.js to be able to run it. and you see that we're running the task. However, it's telling you the task result has failed due to the fact that the required input of sample string was not provided. Okay, so in order to resolve that, we need to provide an input string. So we'll just type $env input sample string equal code doge. You do that, and then you run node index.js. So now you have an input string variable to pass through that has a value. If you run it now, you see that it's successful this time, and it does print out the sample string, and it says hello code doge. So I do want to give the preface that Microsoft documentation does give you steps to do unit testing for your task. However, due to the concentration of this video, that'll probably be excluded and maybe added in part 2 or 3. This one is simply just going to focus on how to quickly as possible and get your task into Azure DevOps for you to start using it immediately. So all that being said, we are ready to create the extension manifest file, which, as you can read here, contains all of the information about your extension. It includes links to your files, including your task folders and image folders. So if you recall, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that there needs to be a specific folder infrastructure for your directory, your home root directory, right? And this was the image that I showed. So in case you haven't already created that, let's go ahead and do that right now. So inside our folder window, let's go back to part 1, which is, in this video's context, our home directory. So we see that we have the build and release task folder, but we still need the readme.md and the images folder. So, okay, so I already did this beforehand. So I'll just type no. Oh, hold on, let me go back one level. So inside your command prompt window, let's go back one, and then just type null greater than readme.md, right? So we do that, and sure enough, we see that readme file created. What's next? Next, we have the images folder. So make dir images. Is it image or images? Images. Let's do that. Now we have an empty images folder. So the only things that we're missing is an image, which will be the default icon for your task, and then the vss-extension.json, which is the manifest file which we're about to create. So before we begin creating the manifest file, let's have an image inside of our images folder. So let's go over here, and you can grab any image, anything you want. In this case, I'm going to grab this one, bring it over here, and let's just rename this so it matches up to extension icon.png. And in case you're wondering, our image thumbnail is going to be this cool as a cucumber doge. So let's go back to the root. So now if you look at it, we have everything that we need except for the VSS extension or the manifest file, which we can start making now. Okay, so now all we have to do is, let's clear this out. Make sure we are in the home root, which is part 1, and then just as always, you can choose however which way to create your file. In this case, I'm going to use type null greater than, and then the name of the file, which will be vss-extension.json. So we see that it's created. Now you can go ahead and edit this, and just as before, you can either pause the video and manually type it out, or look at the video description and go to the GitHub link and download or copy and paste it directly from there. So once you have that, we can move on to the next part. So everything here can be left with its default value for the most part, with exception to one value, which is the publisher value. So whether you're publishing it for private use or just you and your organization's use and sharing it with other organizations as you need to, or you're trying to publish it for public use so anyone can go to the Visual Studio Marketplace, find your extension download it, install it, and use it, you have to have a unique publisher ID. So you can click on the link provided in the video description, or you can pause and just manually copy or rather type out this URL. But either way, once you get to the page, you should see this as its landing page. And pretty much I'm just going to, let me just pull up what value I gave here, test DevOps YT, and go over here, just give the publisher name. The ID will be the same. This is for making DevOps videos for YouTube. Okay, we don't need anything else. Everything else should be optional. And just click create. And there you go. We are now a publisher. So now that we've created our own publisher ID, let's go ahead and change this to test DevOps YT to match it up. Alright, so for the rest of these, we can leave it as a default, but one thing to make sure is, once again, make sure that your directory matches up. You can see here for the icons, it's expecting to look at an images folder and a PNG called extension icon. Same for the path. So let's go ahead and double check that once more. We do indeed have the home directory. We have the build and release task for the files. And for the icons, we do have an images folder, and it is called extension icon.png. So that being said, this is enough. You can choose to change these up as you like, but for now, this is good enough to proceed. Alright, so now we're ready to package the extension. But before we begin, make sure that you look at the prerequisites section again. You can look inside the video description, or you can go back to the part of the video where we cover the prerequisites. And make sure you have TFXCLI cross-platform for Azure DevOps installed, which is a component of Node.js. Alright, so assuming you have the proper dependencies, all you have to do is go to command prompt, go to the directory of your task. In this case, you see that the path is part 1. This is our home root. Make sure you're inside the command prompt window, and just type tfx space extension space create space dash dash manifest dash globs space vss extension.json. So basically we're saying we're going to target this JSON file and create a task file out of it. There you go. We are complete. We see the extension ID is build and release task. The extension version is 00.1. The publisher is the one that we created. And we see over here, we see a .vsix package. This is what we can use to upload directly into the marketplace. Alright, so now that we have our extension packaged, we're ready to upload and publish our extension. So there's two ways to upload your extension. First is manually by going to the portal like this and drag and dropping it here. The second is through another TFX extension command of publish. So I'll cover both of them. Look at the timestamp if you want to skip to the doing it by command line with TFX extension. Otherwise, continue watching here without fast forwarding, and I'll show you how to do it manually. So the first method is the manual method of dragging and dropping via the portal. You can pause and manually type this out, or you can look at the video description and click on the link that's provided there. So once you're here, all you have to do is click on new extension over here, choose which platform it's for. In this case, it's for Azure DevOps. Click on that, and you see this pop-up show up. So the next thing, all you have to do is go over here to your local path of where you have your .vsix, and just simply drag it over here, and you see that's ready to be uploaded, and upload it. It's going to do a verification process, and once it's good, you'll have some additional options. So as you can see, once it's finished, you see that it's verified, and this pop-up shows up about sharing extension. We'll cover how to share it after we cover the second way, which is through command line. Okay, for the sake of this video, I'm going to run the exact same VSIX package with the exact same version. So if you do that, you're going to get a conflict error saying that you can't do that due to the fact that that version is already pushed up. So the way I'm going to solve it for this part of this video as of right now is that I'm just going to simply delete that. So you can click on the triple ellipses and just click on remove. You will remove it and we're back to square one, or step one. Alright, so for method 2, where we do it via command line, there's two things that we want to have first. So open up a notepad and let's focus on getting two values first. The first one is your DevOps organization name. The second one is your personal access token. So to find your DevOps organization name, simply go to your Azure DevOps and you'll see at the top over here the URL. This is your organization name. In this case, I have two organizations. So if you see that I click here, the URL changes. Either way, this is the organization name that I'm going to be concerned about. You can exclude the HTTPS, just start from dev.azure and so on and so forth. So let's log that information down. Alright, next in line is getting your personal access token. So to do that, you can go over here, you see this icon next to your initials or your name, click on personal access tokens over here. You can click on new token here or here, it doesn't matter, it's the same option. Over here, it gives you the option, so let's do YouTube test. Choose expiration, doesn't matter, in my case I'll choose 90 days. You can choose the organization. In the case that you have multiple organizations, you may, for at least this example, need to choose all accessible organizations. That's what I'm going to use right now just to be safe, but for your own context, make sure to pick just your organization or however as you see fit. Also for this, as you can see, there's multiple different scopes that you can add. You can get more granular for your purpose, but for the purpose of this video, I just want to get it done quickly. So I'm going to click on full access and hit create. And now once you do that, you've been given a token. You have your one opportunity to copy it now. Go to your notepad and copy down your personal access token. Alright, so now that we have our personal access token, all that we have to do is go back to your command prompt window. Make sure you're inside the home path of your task. Yes, we are. So once you're there, all you have to do is type in TFX space extension space publish space manifest labs, and then the name of your extension.json. In this case, we just happen to have the default of vss-extension.json, so that's exactly what we're going to pass to. So vss-extension.json space -- share -wit, and then the name of your organization, which we already logged down over here. So just copy it and paste it, hit enter, and it's going to prompt you for your personal access token, which we have over here. So copy this and paste that in there and hit enter. So as you can see, it's going to check to see if the extension's already been published or created. If not, then it's going to create it. Next, it's going to prompt you that it's able to create it. It validates whether or not it's a valid extension to publish. And then, of course, it actually publishes the extension. And it automatically shares it with the organization that you had in mind. Alright, so now let's double check to actually make sure that the extension has been uploaded. So let's go back to our marketplace window and just refresh it. And sure enough, we do see that it's been uploaded here. Now there's one issue. It's fine that it's private, that's fine, but it's not shared. So Microsoft's made me a liar because that command did not actually share it. But that's fine. I'll show you how to actually share it with an organization. Alright, so to share the extension, straightforward. Just click on more actions over here. Click on share. You see that they give you the option to add an organization. They already give you the URL, so just go back to your notepad and copy and paste the name of your organization. click outside anywhere and it's going to verify it. If it's a valid organization, then it will show up. And now you see that it says private, shared with one. So now in order to check whether or not it's been shared with your organization, simply go to organization settings, go to extensions, go to not installed, not requested, but shared, and you see that our extension is now here and it's shared with us. So now that we have shared the extension, all you have to do is click on the extension, click on install. It's going to open a new window. Choose the organization that you want to install it into. Click on install. Okay, so let's proceed to the organization. Let's go to a project. Let's go back actually to organization. Let's confirm that under extensions, it is now showing up as an installed extension. Alright, so now that we have the extension installed, let's go back to one of our projects. In this case, CI/CD. We'll go to pipelines. We will edit one of these pre-existing builds. We'll click on agent job and add a new task. And we will just type in the name of the task. And we see here it is. This is for the YouTube video by CodeDoge. Just click on add over here. The sample string will say CodeDoge. So now that's enough to actually save and queue it. So now let's queue it. So if you noticed, there was actually a default icon that was given. So what we'll do after we confirm that this task is working is we're going to add in an icon so it looks a little bit more professional and you can really make it your own. So that being said, let's click on this task and sure enough, it's working. Hello CodeDoge. So there's two more things we can cover in this video, which is number one, changing the default icon for this. As we can see right now, it's just a gear icon. Since we didn't pass an explicit icon for the task itself, we only shared for the extension over here. And the second thing is how to actually give a updated version of your task and your extension. So first things first, let's go ahead and update the icon. So what we can do over here is go back over here. Let's go inside our images folder and we'll just copy what we have as our extension.icon. Go back, go inside the build and release and simply paste it here. Next, we're just going to rename this to be icon.png. And then inside the task.json, let's go ahead and update this one from minor version. We'll just say it's version 2. And then the same concept, we'll go to vss-extension.json and update this version from 0.01 to 0.02. And then the next step would actually be to run the package command line again to repackage this version. So I just want to quickly edit one part, which is that as you saw, I just changed this from minor version 1 to minor version 2 and the major state is 0. So what happens here is that making a change as significant as adding a new icon would actually need to be considered a major update. So what we can do is change this to minor 0 and change this to major version 1 and then package it. Alright, so with that change in place, let's go ahead and go over here and we will just simply use TFX extension, create manifest globs with VSS extension once more. Let's have this directory window open. Just hit enter. Keep in mind that we already updated the task version to major 1.0 instead of 0.1, and we updated the manifest file to be version 0.0.2. So that being said, we see a new VSIX package created. Alright, so that being said, for the simplicity of this video, we're just going to manually update it. So let's go inside extensions, and before we actually update with the new version, let's see what happens when we try to use the same version. It should be blocking you with a message saying that you need to update with a new version, and sure enough it does tell you that the upload version error. So now that we got that expected error message, let's go ahead and drag our second version. Whoops. Let's go ahead and edit this. I don't know why it's doing it that way, but we'll just drag and drop it again. And we see that it's in verifying state, so it should be good to go soon. We'll just wait a little bit just to make sure it's completely updated. Alright, so there it is. So just an FYI, give it a couple seconds to like 2 to 3 minutes to update. Sometimes the update might not be immediate, so if you happen to see nothing updated, just wait a few. Alright, so now let's navigate back to our DevOps window. Let's go ahead and refresh this page, and let's see if it's updated. So first, remember that the first version was major version 0, minor version 1, patch version 0. So if this has been updated, we should see the task version change and have a drop-down option. Hasn't updated yet, so maybe it still needs another minute. Okay, so wow, that's crazy. Immediately updated. So now we see that there's version 1, and if we click on that, would you look at that, we have the icon. So now we've covered how to add in a custom icon as well as update your task version as well as your manifest version. Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up for this video. The next few series is going to focus on how you can continue to build out your custom task, such as instead of just having an input text box, you can have drop downs, checkboxes, whatever, what have you. So you can really customize and have a unique custom task. And then on top of that, we'll also cover how to unit test your tasks, and anything else that might come in between those two, those would be in the additional parts. So otherwise, if you enjoyed it and if this helped you out, please feel free to subscribe and like the video, and do share it with everyone else so that there's more exposure so that the channel can continue to grow. Thanks for watching.